No, the academy has been my home for the past 7 years, and of course, I have to take credit. I have to take credit.
After 1 year outside of the tour, I think it's the right moment to be back. I have been.
Did you deal with the atmosphere, the energy, and the public?
Yeah, this is my first time playing a French player here, actually in this tournament that I can remember.
Rafa Nadal bursts. I've never witnessed a tournament this awful. Ella's retaliation and the crisis of Coco. People, where we don't just give the results. We tell the tales. They are attempting to conceal themselves. And right now our current controversy is rocking the Australian Open's fundamental principles, a storyline of salvation that sounds like a film plot, and an emergency that could simply ruin American tennis. Put on your seatbelt, because Rafael Nadal is, in fact, the monarch of clay has recently gone nuclear. We are talking about a 10-word warning that with the WTA in disarray, the Australian damage control officials should be open, and the whole tennis community seeing one Alexandra, a young lady. If you considered the drama ended when I was knocked out of Melbourne, you are dead incorrect. It was just getting started. Additionally, we have the most recent information on Coco Gauff's absolute rod lever arena horror. You won't trust the question she posed her coach in the midway through the game. It's startling. We having a tremendous performance today. Let's get into it. Let's start with the headline that is completely controlling the back pages. I've never seen a tournament this awful. These are not the statements of an annoyed fan. These are the statements made by Rafael Nadal. Here is the context. After Alex Eala's devastating first-round loss in the 2026 Australian, the official story was straightforward and open. She was defeated in a tennis match. The idea the system stated one thing, but Rafa Nadal, he perceived something entirely different. In a move that is uncommon from the Nadal, a legend, entered a tough demonstration of assistance for Eala, who is, as many as you are aware, a proud alumnus of the Rafa Nadal Academy. However, this wasn't only I hope you have better luck the next time. This was a charge. Nadal pointed out what he thought that was obvious discrimination in the structure of the tournament, specifically addressing accommodation, judicial agreements, as well as the general treatment of rising stars versus the entrenched elite. He issued a 10-word caution. I've never witnessed a competition this awful. Now fix it. That led to the WTA will provide an explanation right away about the policies of Australian Opens. When a 22-time Grand Slam victor the world hears what you have to say. Nadal's intervention implies that Eala's loss wasn't limited to forehands and backhands. It was about an uneven level playing field. Was she compelled to board a back court with dim lighting? Was her scheduling disadvantageous? Nadal appears to believe that, and his defense of the young Filipina celebrity has transformed her Australian Open exit into a rallying cry for the tour's fairness. The strain regarding the circumstances of the tournament has been a brewing issue for years, but having someone of Nadal's caliber would openly call the Australian Open is shocking. Ripples across the tennis facility. This isn't a mediocre player, grumbling about hotel accommodations or practice sessions for the court. This is a living legend, a person who has achieved everything in tennis. There is a chance to win, stating that the level of standards has dropped to the point where rising talents are being consistently at a disadvantage. That there are huge ramifications. If demonstrated indeed, this might lead to a whole redesign of Grand Slam competitions, setup matches, and assign resources for players who are sat lower. What causes even more potent than Nadal's comment is his history of infrequently participating in public criticism of competitions. Throughout his successful career, Rafa has a reputation as a consummate professional, someone who permits the racket speaks for itself. For him to shatter that pattern means something must have gone horribly wrong. Industry insiders are speculating that this might be the tip of the iceberg, with other players potentially coming forward with their personal encounters with unjust therapy at Melbourne Park. However, this is the champions, and Alex Eala thing is a future champion. They don't wallow. While Melbourne was occupied with damage control over Nadal's comments, Eala had already boarded a plane to where she is more than just a performer, but an icon, Manila. The scene at the first Philippine Women's Open it was an electrifying Monday. You must recognize the difference. In Melbourne, she was apparently engaged in combat with the circumstances. She was fighting in Manila for a nation, taking on Alina of Russia Alexandra in the first round. There was a lot of pressure. Coming from a first-round defeat at a slam can shatter a player's assurance, but Eala didn't shrink. She blew up in front of a raucous, crowded mob of Filipino supporters. Eala dismantled Scaragua. The scoreline says it all. 6-1 6-2. It was a masterclass. It was combative. It was exact. More significantly, it was the ideal exorcism of the spirits of Melbourne. Scaragua, a reliable participant she just didn't know how to respond on her own. I was using a paintbrush to paint the lines. Freedom we had not experienced in Australia. It was a declaration that read, "The Australian Open might have knocked me down, but I am standing tall in Manila." The stadium's excitement was unparalleled. Anything that the WTA Tour had witnessed recently remembrance. Filipino supporters had been anticipating for this time, waiting for their tennis princess to return home and deliver a performance deserving of her development legend. The match statistics tell the story of ultimate supremacy. Yellow won 85% of her initial serve points, broke Scaragua's serve 5 times, and never on her own serve, she encountered a break point. This was more than just a win. It was in declaration to all viewers that Alex Eala is not characterized by a single disappointing outcome in Australia. The resilience she displayed, bouncing back within days from what would have been a devastating defeat, demonstrates the mental toughness that distinguishes excellent players from mediocre ones. What further enhanced the performance impressive was the tactical adjustments Eala produced. The tentative ground had vanished. Defensive posture and strokes that hindered her campaign in Melbourne. Within Manila, she was a violent attacker. Tennis, catching the ball early and controlling play from the baseline. Her serve, which had been inconsistent in Australia, abruptly shifted into action, with first serves regularly hitting the corners and ease of setup putaways. This is the Alex Eala who fans of tennis have been anticipating on the WTA Tour consistently. Following the match, the press room's ambience was heavy, not with stress, but with feeling. A is now among the most well-known players on the WTA circuit, and the Filipino fan base is renowned. They are everywhere, but in Manila, it's distinct. When asked by Tennis Asia regarding the strain of playing at home, Eala shared her thoughts with us. That was really mature for a 20 years old. She acknowledged, "I believe it has a particular place in my heart. First ever home professional game. Was able to spend time with family and surrounded by fans and with love, so it's really unique. However, love has expectations, so be honest." Eala, who had heard motivational speeches from fellow young stars Coco Gauff and prior to the competition, Victoria, didn't shy away from the truth. "Yes, I would think there is a touch of additional pressure," she said. "However, that is the work. There is pressure at work." Additionally, as according to Billie Jean King, pressure is a privilege. I'm learning how to deal with it, in my own manner. Next, the discussion taken a turn that really demonstrates why Eala is a really special person in the sports world. Today, when questioned about her function as an international representative of the Philippines, her response was insightful. It wasn't about it was about perspective, not celebrity. She discussed how, when under pressure, overpowering, she remembers the ordinary individual. "It's nothing," she remarked, in contrast to the demands that regular Filipinos have to deal with provide for their family. "It's nothing like what my folks possess given up to get me here." That's a perspective you don't hear often. She refers to it as a full-circle moment, observing her two worlds collide. The glamour of the WTA Tour and Manila's tenacity. It grounds her. It makes the tennis pressure seem little. And that, friends, is a deadly mindset for her opponents. An athlete who plays with gratitude rather fear is a player who is difficult to beat. This philosophical method of Eala is different from many of her peers. In an era where young players frequently give in to the pressure of expectations, collapsing beneath the spotlight, Eala has managed to instead reframe pressure as incentive, rather than a burden. Her capacity to put her tennis difficulties in perspective within a more comprehensive context of actual world struggles gives her a psychological advantage that cannot be purchased with money, and coaching is unable to impart knowledge. It originates from her upbringing, from seeing her family's sacrifices, from realizing that participating in professional tennis is a unique privilege that millions would die for. The Eala success's cultural relevance cannot be emphasized enough. Tennis has historically been a sport that was controlled by a rich country with significant training infrastructure. For a young woman from the Philippines to succeed at the greatest levels indicate something distant, greater than personal success. She is bearing the aspirations of a whole nation, inspiring a generation of young Filipino athletes to think that they can participate in international competitions. The economic obstacles that have traditionally prevented gifted athletes from growing countries that have stopped playing tennis are gradually disintegrated, and a driving force behind that. What will happen to Filipinos next? Sensation? Eala, the second seed in Manila, is anticipating a round of 16. Conflict that can be challenging. She will facing either Jimeno Sakitsum or presently Hibino. This is the breakdown. Eala has played Sakitsum once previously at the 2023 Japan Championships, and it didn't go alright. She was defeated 6-0 and 6-3. That's a scoreline. She'll want to exact revenge. However, she hasn't played since on the WTA Tour is Hibino. Hibino is a veteran, a cunning client who understands how to throw off the flow. If Eala manages to overcome this obstacle, the draw becomes a possible quarter-final blockbuster versus Camila Osorio or Mayantima. However, for now, everyone is focused on that round of 16. Is she able to maintain the momentum? If Monday was any clue, the response is a resounding yes. The path to the title is difficult, but doable. Eala's game is reaching its peak at the ideal moment. Her self-assurance is immense, and she possesses the throng behind her. These are the components of an enchanted competition run. The possible rematch with Sakitsum offers an intriguing psychological challenge. That 6-0-6 in 2023 to 3 drubbing is the type of scoreline that a player may be haunted with. However, Eala is not the same player she was back then. She has developed physically and mentally. Her game has evolved, and she has the weapons to harm any adversary. If they do cross paths again, it will be a whole distinct competition, and Eala would be the wise investor. Retaliation for such humiliating loss. Let's now turn back to the scene of the crime, the Australian Open, where the US contingent is experiencing an incredibly different week. As Eala was Coco Gauff, finding her groove in Manila, was in Melbourne losing hers. Coco Gauff's quest came to an abrupt end. Tuesday's startling halt against Elena Svitolina. And folks, this wasn't just a loss. It was a demolition. Gauff was comprehensively trounced 6-1. 6-2 in just 59 minutes. Give that some thought. Less than in an hour. The statistics are appalling. Gauff prevailed only 41% of her first serve points. She made 5 double faults. She misted 26 unintentional mistakes against just 3 winners. 3 winners in a Grand Slam match. Tim Henman, offering his thoughts on the match, didn't hesitate. He slammed the performance, describing it as startling and tough to watch. He is correct, too. We are used to Coco Gauff as a combatant, an exceptional athlete with a strong work ethic even when her performance isn't at its peak. However, this was a collapse. However, the most concerning instance occurred during the match itself. In her post-game interview conference, Gauff disclosed a discussion with her coaching box she had frankly worrying. I was just, she said, wondering, am I playing incorrectly? Yes, I'm only seeking guidance. Assume that you are on the Grand Slam Rod Laver Arena champion and you're examining your am I playing wrong, the box asked. Her team advised her to set higher goals, to strike through the center. But Gauff said, I don't know. I simply felt similar to striking through the center of her wasn't functioning. It was merely an uncomfortable day. Caroline Wozniacki attempted to make it seem like a learning curve, highlighting the fact that Gauff is still young at 21, but questions are being asked. Is this a technical problem? A block in the mind? Svitolina is a tough player, no doubt. But for Gauff to look so lost tactically is a serious warning sign for the remainder of her season. The worrying feature of Gauff's performance was more than the actual defeat, but the style of defeat. This was not a tight 3-set match with a few points made a difference. This was not a tactical conflict in which Svitolina merely outwitted her rival. This was a comprehensive analysis of Gauff's game in which nothing was working and she seemed incapable of adapting or resolving issues on the takeoff. For a player that took home the US Open title and has been hailed as the prospect of American tennis, this sort of performance poses important concerns. Regarding the course of her development, tennis analysts have promptly noted that Gauff's forehand, long regarded as the aspect of her game that was weaker, was entirely exposed by Svitolina. The veteran from Ukraine, a cunning player with outstanding placement on the court, continually targeted that forehand, making mistakes and keeping Gauff from establishing any rhythm. What was most worrisome was Gauff's inability to make tactical adjustments. When Plan A wasn't working, there seemed to be no Plan B. This shows either a lack of tactical awareness or a failure to carry out different tactics when under duress. Additionally, the coaching scenario merits examination. Gauff has experienced numerous coaching shifts during her early career, and even though every change has been described as essential for her, the revolving door method of growth seldom yields reliable outcomes. The fact that she was requesting her box, whether she was playing incorrectly in the middle of the game, shows a fundamental lack of assurance in her strategy. Elite players have faith in their gut feelings, and they're getting ready. They modify things based on emotion and experience rather than by looking for confirmation from the sidelines during important times. Additionally, there is the psychological aspect to take into account. Defending a Grand Slam championship is one of the most challenging obstacles in tennis. As the target on your back grows larger, the expectations soar, and each the opponent gives it their all. Against you, the US Open was won by Gauff in 2023, a pivotal year that made her a tennis sensation. However, pressure follows that achievement. Not every young player handles it all right. Some crumble due to the weight of expectations, doubting their skills, and losing the courageous, aggressive attitude that led to success in the first instance. The Gauff serve's technological problems are also becoming increasingly obvious. 5 double faults in such a short match at the Grand Slam level is unacceptable. The serve should be a weapon, a reliable instrument that creates an unpleasant chances. Rather, for Gauff, it has become a source of distress. A shot that she seemed uncertain even as she tosses the ball. This lack of trust in such an essential component of the game can have a domino effect that undermines everything else. Gauff wasn't the only American deaths. Tuesday, young Iva Jovic, a sensation, packed her bags as well, following Ana's 6-3, 6-0 drubbing Sri Lanka. But it's not all gloom and despair for the United States. We have a big Wednesday, is going to be a showdown. As in Rod Laver Arena will host an all-American fight. Jessica Pegula in contrast to Amanda and Isimova. This will be beneficial. Pegula is the steady hand, the steady force. All three have been won by her. Of their earlier encounters that date back up until 2020. Anisimova was even defeated by her in the Canadian Masters final in 2024. But don't rule out Aniova. Things have evolved. She is playing some of the greatest tennis she has ever played. She is presently the American #1, and she is a Grand Slam finalist twice. Neither a set was dropped by the player en route to the quarters. There is a clash of styles here. And a clash of momentum. The victor receives a semi-final matchup with either IG, SWICH, or Raikina Elena. It receives no simpler, isn't it? Beyond the individual, this quarterfinal meeting is all-American. Symbolizes something important for the United States tennis. Following years of drought, the Williams sisters' retirement, once more, American women are emerging as power in the game. Having multiple Americans in the late stages of Grand Slams are increasingly commonplace instead of the exception. This depth is beneficial for the sport and fosters a competitive setting that encourages everyone to improve. The larger plot of the Australian Open has been among uncertainty and discomfort. Several of the best seeds have already left, making room for the attraction in ways that produce chances for players who might not usually. Deep runs are anticipated. This unpredictability is thrilling as well. And uncomfortable. Thrilling since it implies real rivalry and drama on each court. disturbing since it implies that the degree of play across the women's tour has grown so compressed that on any given day, nearly anybody may defeat any other person. The mental side of tennis has never been more crucial. With coaching authorized during matches and technology that provide tremendous volumes of data and analysis, the spaces in space between the number of players has significantly decreased. What distinguishes the winners from the Rands is becoming more and more mental fortitude. The capacity to perform under pressure and the ability to cause issues solve in the moment when things aren't going according to plan. Here's where athletes such as Alexandra Eala, who has a mature perspective on pressure, have a substantial benefit. The dispute surrounding the circumstances of the tournament. Nadal's remarks regarding Eala's therapy in Melbourne reveals a long-standing problem in tennis. The sport has consistently shown a sharp contrast between the elite players and everyone else. The top 10 are given special consideration in almost every manner. Better practice times, improved schedule, courts, and more attention from event organizers. Although this makes some sense based on from a business standpoint, it generates a system in which young talent faces difficulties to succeed despite having the capacity to compete at the highest levels. Although transformation is necessary, it is challenging when the existing system helps the athletes that are already established and makes the greatest money for competitions. Nadal's readiness to speak out using his status to advocate for younger players to be treated more fairly is admirable and possibly powerful. If more elite players sign up his demand for change, competitions are forced to listen and make changes. The tennis community in the Philippines is observing Eala's path with passion, enthusiasm, and patriotism. Sports heroes are rare in the Philippines, particularly in individual sports like tennis that necessitates substantial infrastructure and financial investment. The success of Eala is motivating a new young Filipino generation to take up a racket and have huge dreams. TennisMy's reports from all throughout the nation increased enrollment, and sponsors are beginning to invest more extensively in improving tennis skills. This is the consequences of making a breakthrough star. Eala isn't merely entertaining herself. She is laying the groundwork for tennis in the Philippines could last for decades. If she continues to develop and eventually breaks into the top 20 or even the world's top 10, the influence on her native nation will undergo radical change. Greater resources, facilities, and chances for young athletes who might not otherwise have the opportunity to follow their aspirations in tennis. The contrast between Eala's victorious return home and Gauff's Melbourne nightmare perfectly captures the roller coaster of emotions professional tennis's roller coaster. 1 week you're in control of the world. The next you're doubting every aspect of your game and pondering whether you'll ever recapture that magic. The athletes whose long-term success belongs to those who can traverse these erratic fluctuations without losing their fundamental character as rivals. Looking ahead to the rest throughout the season, Gauff and Eala both encounter crucial points in their professional lives. For Eala, I want to know if she can convert this Manila momentum into consistent achievement on the WTA circuit. Can she manage the demands of every day of the week? Competition at the top level? Can she avoid injuries and maintains her health? That ruins so many bright careers? For Gauff, the question is whether this loss turns into a wake-up call that compels required adjustments or the start of a worrying, decreasing trend. The game of tennis the globe is keeping a close eye on both athletes. Eala stands for potential, hope, and the democratization of a sport that has historically been dominated by affluent countries. Gauff is an American tennis's future, a talent that spans generations who needs to find their confidence again, and combative attitude that turned her into a Grand Slam winner. Their routes might not cross frequently on the court considering their current ranking disparities, but in a symbolic they stand for the opposing sides of the tennis adventure, the climb, and the fight to remain at the top. Thus, they're champions. You've got it. Rafael Nadal is fighting the Australian Open organizers. Alexandra Eala is demonstrating that in Manila, pressure is a privilege. And Coco Gauff is hunting for answers following a disaster in Melbourne. The game of tennis the world is spinning, and our purpose is to keep track of each spin. What are your thoughts? Was Nadal correct to criticize the competition for Eala's care? And is able to Alexa won the title by going all the way in front of her home crowd? Tell me in the remarks section below. I perused every just one. And hey, If you enjoyed this update, hit the like button and ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss a second of the drama. We've received more amazing tennis content coming your way throughout the entire week, including comprehensive overview of the Isamova Pigula battle and updates on Eala's pursuit of glory in Manila. Until the next time, keep keeping your focus on the ball. 1 year after leaving the tour, I think it's the appropriate moment to be back. I believe that for testers, particularly the juniors, I believe it's a fantastic chance to be exposed to this degree, and this tiny I believe it's just typical that with a disappointment follows loss, and being unhappy, but it's another I believe I'm attempting to get as many 6 as you can, since you are aware that we have people who, as you are aware, possess the bakery, so I could have a tiny one.